Your yard is completely dark right now. The feeder is still. The branches are empty. Every bird that was there this morning has disappeared, and you have no idea where any of them went. Most people assume the answer is simple. They flew somewhere. They found a tree. They went to sleep. And that is technically true, and it misses almost everything that is actually happening. Because the birds in your yard are not just sleeping. Right now, in the dark, within 100 feet of where you are sitting, they are doing things that took scientists decades to document and still surprise researchers who have spent their entire careers studying them. The yard you think you know goes completely silent at night and starts running a completely different program, and you have never seen it. Today we are going to go into exactly what that program is, what your birds are doing the moment the light drops, how they stay warm when the temperature falls 20 degrees overnight, what their brains are doing while their bodies sleep, and the one thing that happens in your yard on certain nights that most people never connect to the birds they watch every morning. Stay until the end, because the last thing we cover changes the way you look at the sky above your house every single night from now on. The first thing that happens is a decision. Not a conscious one the way you make decisions, but a real one, driven by biology, executed with precision, made every single evening by every bird in your yard before the light is fully gone. Where to sleep. This is not a trivial question for a small bird. The wrong answer means not waking up. A bird that roosts in an exposed location on a cold night can lose so much heat that it does not survive until morning. A bird that chooses a location without adequate escape routes can be taken by an owl before midnight. The roosting decision is the most important decision a small bird makes every single day, and it makes it on a schedule so reliable you could set a clock by it. Research published by ornithologist Susan Bott and her colleagues at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology documented the roosting behavior of black-capped chickadees across multiple winters in upstate New York. What they found was that individual birds returned to the same roosting cavity on consecutive nights with a consistency that matched their feeder site fidelity almost exactly. The same bird, the same hole in the same dead tree, night after night for weeks. Your chickadee does not find a place to sleep. It goes home. The biology of how small birds survive cold nights is one of the most elegant solutions in all of vertebrate physiology, and it is happening right outside your window every single night from October through March. The problem is simple and brutal. A black-capped chickadee weighs approximately 12 grams. It has a surface area to volume ratio that makes heat loss almost instantaneous in cold air. On a night when the temperature drops to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, that 12-gram bird needs to maintain a core body temperature of around 107 degrees Fahrenheit to survive. The energy cost of doing that all night, at normal metabolic rates, would burn through its entire fat reserve before midnight, so it does not do it at normal metabolic rates. Every night, as darkness falls, the chickadee in your yard enters a controlled state of hypothermia. Susan Bott's research and earlier work by Thomas Grubb at Ohio State University documented core body temperature drops of up to 22 degrees Fahrenheit in wintering chickadees during overnight roost periods. The bird does not get cold by accident. It gets cold on purpose. It actively reduces its own body temperature to a level that would constitute a medical emergency in any mammal, holds it there all night while burning the absolute minimum amount of fat, and then re-warms itself before dawn using the same metabolic machinery it uses for flight. This happens every single night in your yard, in the cavity of that dead branch you have been meaning to cut down, inside the dense tangle of the evergreen shrub along your fence line, in the roosting box you put up 3 winters ago that you assume nothing is using because you never see anything go in. The sparrows are doing something different, and it is something that no individual sparrow could do alone. House sparrows, dark-eyed juncos, and American tree sparrows are communal roosters. On cold nights, they find each other and pack into enclosed spaces together. Dense hedgerows, the cavities behind your house's exterior trim, the space inside your porch roof, and they huddle. The physics of the huddle are straightforward. Multiple small bodies sharing a surface reduce each individual's heat loss dramatically. A huddle of 10 sparrows maintains warmth with a fraction of the energy 10 individual sparrows would need. But the behavior of the huddle is more sophisticated than simple heat sharing. Research by Anne Goodenough at the University of Gloucestershire documented the internal organization of winter sparrow roosts using thermal imaging cameras. What she found was that birds rotated positions within the huddle over the course of the night. The birds on the outside, most exposed to cold, were not the same birds at 2 in the morning as they were at 10 at night. The group was actively managing its own thermal efficiency in the dark. Individual birds that stayed too long on the cold outer edge moved inward. Birds from the warm center rotated out. The huddle was running a system that no individual bird designed and no individual bird controlled. That system is running right now in your yard. In the bushes you planted along the back fence. In the gap behind your gutter. In the hedgerow at the property line that your neighbor keeps asking you to cut back. Now we need to talk about what their brains are doing. Because the answer is not what you think, and it is not simply nothing. Birds do not sleep the way mammals sleep. The research on avian sleep, much of it conducted by Niels Rattenborg at the Max Planck Institute for Ornithology, has revealed a sleep architecture so different from human sleep that it barely maps onto the same framework. Birds have the same 2 sleep states mammals have: slow-wave sleep, the deep restorative phase, and REM sleep, the rapid eye movement phase associated in mammals with dreaming. But birds can deploy these states with a flexibility that no mammal can match. They can put half their brain into slow-wave sleep while keeping the other half fully awake and alert. One eye closes, the eye connected to the sleeping hemisphere, while the other stays open and scanning for predators. The bird is simultaneously asleep and awake, resting and watching, unconscious in one hemisphere and fully conscious in the other. Rattenborg's research showed that birds in exposed roosting positions used this split-brain sleep far more frequently than birds in protected cavities. The chickadee inside the tree cavity sleeps with both hemispheres simultaneously. The sparrow on the outer edge of the hedgerow, where predator exposure is higher, keeps one eye open all night. The brain allocates its sleep based on the security of the position. Every bird in your yard is running this calculation right now, in the dark, without any input from you. Here is the part that most people who love their backyard birds never connect directly to what they see above their house on clear nights. On certain nights in spring and fall, the air above your yard is full of birds. Not the birds that nested there, not the birds that visit your feeder. Millions of birds, warblers, thrushes, vireos, tanagers, sparrows, shorebirds, that you have never seen and will never see at your feeder, moving through the dark above your house at altitudes between 500 and 5,000 feet, navigating by magnetic fields and star maps, crossing state lines and international borders in a single night. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology's Birdcast program, which uses a network of weather radar stations to track actual bird movements across North America in real time, has documented single nights in which more than 500 million birds were in flight simultaneously over the continental United States. 500 million birds, in the dark, above houses and cities and yards exactly like yours. Andrew Farnsworth, a research scientist at the Cornell Lab who leads the Birdcast program, has spent 15 years analyzing the radar signatures of these movements. What the radar shows is that the peak of nocturnal migration over most of the eastern United States occurs between 10 at night and 2 in the morning. The hours when you are most deeply asleep are the hours when the sky above your house is most densely packed with birds in motion. They are not stopping in your yard. They are using the air above it as a highway. And on the mornings after the biggest migration nights, the birds that appear at your feeder, the ones that seem to come from nowhere, that are there one morning when they were not there the day before, are the ones that dropped out of that highway at dawn and found your yard underneath them. Your feeder is not just a feeding station. It is a waypoint on a migration route that runs through your zip code. The birds that appear at it on October mornings are travelers who spent the night above your house and landed when the light came up. There is one more thing happening in your yard at night that almost nobody knows about, and it happens in plain hearing if you know when to listen. On clear nights during peak migration, the same nights the Birdcast radar lights up with hundreds of millions of birds, go outside around midnight and stand still and listen to the sky. What you will hear, if the conditions are right, are flight calls. Thin, brief, high-pitched contact notes that migrating birds make as they move through the dark. Each species has a distinct flight call: the thin lisp of a blackpoll warbler, the sharp upward whistle of a Swainson's thrush, the low, buzzy note of a bay-breasted warbler. These calls are different from the songs these birds make on their breeding grounds. They are specifically nocturnal migration vocalizations, used to maintain contact with other birds of the same species moving through the same airspace in the dark. William Evans, an independent researcher who spent decades recording these calls, built the first systematic library of nocturnal flight calls, and demonstrated that a trained listener standing in a backyard on a good migration night could identify dozens of species without ever seeing a single bird. Just sound, from above, in the dark, from birds passing through on their way somewhere else. You can hear this from your yard. Tonight, if the conditions are right. The birds your feeder has never seen, passing over the space your feeder occupies, speaking to each other in a language that has been crossing your yard every fall and spring for as long as your yard has existed. The feeder will be busy tomorrow morning. The same chickadee that survived last night by lowering its own body temperature 20 degrees will be there before you pour your first cup of coffee. The juncos that pack together in your hedgerow will shake themselves out and start moving through the yard like nothing unusual happened. The bird that appeared at the feeder last week and that you do not recognize will be the one that dropped out of the migration stream above your house on the night before it first appeared. Your yard has a nightlife you have never seen. It runs every single night, in the dark, while you sleep, using your trees and your shrubs and your dead branches and the air above your roof in ways nobody told you about. Now you know what you are actually looking at when the light comes up and the birds come back. Have you ever heard sounds from outside at night that you could not identify? Or noticed a bird at your feeder one morning that you had never seen before and have never seen since? Tell me about it in the comments. Those are the ones that are almost always part of this. I read every single one. Subscribe for new videos every week on the birds in your yard, what they are really doing, and the science behind what you see every morning at your feeder. There is something else worth understanding about the roosting decisions your birds make, and it connects directly to what you do every evening without knowing it matters. The light you leave on. The porch light, the garage light, the string of lights along the fence you put up last summer. Artificial light at night disrupts the timing signal that birds use to make the transition from daytime activity to roosting behavior. Research conducted by Communal at the Netherlands Institute of Ecology tracked the roosting timing of great tits, close relatives of your chickadees, in urban areas with high artificial light exposure versus rural areas with natural darkness. Birds near artificial light delayed their roosting by as much as 90 minutes compared to birds in dark environments. 90 minutes of additional cold exposure, 90 minutes of additional predator exposure, 90 minutes of fat burning at active metabolic rates, instead of the reduced rate of controlled hypothermia. The bird sitting on the branch outside your lit window at 9 at night is not enjoying the warmth. It is being held past its biological bedtime by a light source that did not exist in the environment its nervous system was built for. This does not mean you should turn off every light in your yard. It means that the motion sensor light that clicks on every time the wind moves the bushes is doing something to the birds in those bushes that you probably never considered. The flip side of this is equally important and almost never discussed. Darkness in your yard, real darkness, the kind that lets the birds read the night sky, is one of the most valuable things you can provide. The chickadee that roosts in your yard on a clear October night is not just sleeping through it. On certain nights, it is calibrating, cross-referencing the star map it built in the first weeks of its life against the current position of the celestial pole, confirming its navigational heading for the journey it may be about to make. Your dark yard is not empty. On the right night, it is a navigational station. Most people put enormous effort into what they put in the feeder: the quality of the seed, the type of the feeder, the placement relative to cover. Almost nobody thinks about what happens in the yard after the feeder closes for the night. But the birds do not stop being birds when the light goes. They just become invisible to you. The bird sitting on the branch outside your lit window at 9 at night is not enjoying the warmth. It is being held past its biological bedtime by a light source that did not exist in the environment its nervous system was built for. Your dark yard is not empty. On the right night, it is a navigational station, a roosting site, a waypoint, a place where the night program runs in full, just outside your window, while you sleep.